Attrition happens in the NFL. Guys get hurt. Guys get benched. Guys get traded. Guys want to get traded. A lot of things happen with this NFL soap opera from week to week that affects fantasy football. And the Raiders got a soap opera right now with Davante Adams. He missed last week with a hamstring issue, which really isn't that big a deal. That's something you see every day. But now Davante Adams is requesting for a trade. And we're getting a lot of questions about Tre Tucker, whether or not to pick him up for fantasy football. So today, we're going to deep dive this situation. We're going to look at the advanced analytics to see whether or not you want him for fantasy football, whether or not you need him, whether or not he can help your fantasy team, and this will help you make that decision. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're doing this for as many players as possible this week and every week throughout the football season. So when trends happen, we go over the players, the advanced metrics, the news, the situation, so you know whether or not to pick that guy up. We go deep on the waiver wire. We also use these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. Rick Blair's watching you right there. Do not disappoint him. But Davante Adams is requesting a trade. We got some soap opera drama here in Vegas with the Raiders. And it's getting interesting. At least we're going to have fun watching this play out. And he missed last week with a hamstring issue, which isn't that big a deal. It happens with a lot of players. But the trade request has us perking up our ears. Are we going to get a quiet quitter? Or are we going to get him coming back and playing with the Raiders? What's going to happen for the long term? But Tre Tucker, these last 2 weeks, has been balling out. We balled out in week 4 against the Browns. 6 targets, caught 5 balls, 41 yards. And then against Carolina, we had 9 targets, catching 7 of those for 96 yards and a touchdown. We also had a rushing touchdown in week 4 as well. That's not noted there. We're from Cincinnati, not overly productive, but there's a reason why the Raiders drafted him in the 3rd round, because he's a speedy slot receiver that you can move around. He can stretch the field, and we see that in the numbers. And look at the depth chart here. After Davante Adams, it's him and Jakobi Meyers. There's a lot of opportunity here. This situation's looking grand. It's already starting to look grand for Tre Tucker, and you're just looking at these last 2 weeks when Tre Tucker's running hot, when Davante Adams has been out, plus the week prior, he's got 15 targets, racked up a 23.8% target share, has ran 64 routes, averaging 32 routes a game in those 2 games, 142 air yards during that time, so about a 9.5 to 10 average depth of target, and almost 30% of the team's passing air yards. So we're getting a lot of workload. We're getting a lot of volume. Tre Tucker's getting starter volume for fantasy football. That is rosterable volume. That is a large enough sample size. Not enough to make you feel super good, but 2 games, large enough sample size to make you feel good picking him up off the waiver wire. 7.5 targets per game. So let's go a little bit lower. Let's lowball that to about 5+ targets per game. If Davante Adams is out or never suits up again as a Raider with this depth chart, Tre Tucker, if there's no changes, if they don't bring in another wide receiver, would get 5+ targets per game. How do you feel about that with around an 8 out of 10? I think that's good. That's going to push to around a 22% target share more because remember, Brock Bowers is here. He's soaking up targets. However, if Adams is gone, it's him and Jakobi Meyers. DJ Turner's not getting hardly any volume in this offense, and they're in game scripts where it just gets weird. It's the Raiders. That's what's happening. They get in weird game scripts. They got low over-unders going in, and things just get weird, and they got to throw the ball here and there. It's the Raiders. They're in weird game scripts. It's hard to predict this team out for the long term, but Tre Tucker's got speed. They move him around. They get him carries out of the backfield. They want to use him. He's got speed to burn. Has an 8 out of 10.8 on the season. And 5+ targets per game with an 8 out of 10.8, pushing a 20+% target share with Adams gone. That is a wide receiver fundamentally that you pick up off waiver. I say this every week. Any wide receiver getting a 20+% target share that's getting decent volume is good for a pickup to see what happens at least. Tre Tucker's there with Adams is out. Tre Tucker is there. So if you want to look at him, Jakobi Meyers is the first read in this offense. 45% of the time, he is the first read. Sometimes it's Tucker. Sometimes it's Brock Bowers. Jakobi Meyers is the main read if Adams is out. So if you're wondering that, it's Jakobi Meyers. He is the first pickup due to that, but Tre Tucker can also get his in this offense because he's running on damn near 90% of the routes, if not more, going forward. He's got opportunity here. He's an incumbent in the offense. He's got speed to burn. Jakobi Meyers is going to get locked down in some games. There's going to be volume in some games, but you're looking at 5+ targets a game. When I say plus, that means more than 5, more than likely, but 5-ish on the low games. Of course, there's going to be some lower than 5, but you get what I'm talking about. You're looking at the passing volume here. Gardner Minshew, when it comes to dropbacks and attempts, is middle of the road here, middle in the league, and I think that's fine. I think that's fine for volume. You're not going to expect him to be tops in the league in volume and dropbacks with this coaching staff. I think that's okay for volume for a wide receiver too in this offense that's coming off the waiver wire for you for fantasy football. But when you look at the schedule here, these next few games, I am worried. The Broncos just getting these slow game scripts where there's barely any points. That's just how it is. Anybody playing the Broncos, you don't really want to start. This game breaks tiers the other way for the other player if you got two guys that you're thinking about because of how low scoring it's going to be. Then you got the Steelers. That could be more targets to Tre Tucker out of the slots moved around. That might get him more targets than Jakobi Meyers. Or it could be just locked down, nothing happening in this passing game for the Raiders. After that, the Chiefs, similar thing that could happen unless the volume breaks. The volume could break for the Rams game as well. The Bengals game could be interesting. But these next two matchups are going to be very interesting for the Raiders. You don't need them. You're good at wide receiver. You're looking at the waiver wire, and you're like, nah, to the wide receivers because you drafted heavy at wide receiver. You haven't got decimated by injuries yet. You don't have to make any tough decisions. However, you're chasing targets. You know 5+ targets per game is coming if Davante Adams is out. Bruce told you that. Pushing a 20+% target share if Davante Adams is out. I just want the targets. I just need to chase the targets. And honestly, for fantasy football, you chase the work and you let the chips fall where it may. You could ask me if this wide receiver in a good game script gets 5 targets in this game versus this wide receiver who gets 5 targets in this game projected, and they're both in similar game scripts, which one to pick? It's a coin flip. It's common sense. Like, you're not going to know. It's football. Football is football. The odds are with the workload. The odds is how the game is scripted, how you figure out the workflow of the game's going to go, how many points are going to be scored, who's going to have the ball the most, how many times the ball's going to be thrown, all that stuff. But when you're looking at things one for one and the workload's very similar, it's a coin flip. And he's going to be a coin flip with some of your lineup decisions for your flex. That's good to have another coin flip with, to make those decisions with, especially once those bye weeks start to hit and injuries start to mount up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One, thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.